And we are recording. I think we are. Yeah, we are.
Yep.
Well, so hello everybody on D Live, Patriot Soapbox, everything like that. Alan is not going to be leading his normal show, and Doug is not going to be here with me. I am joined by Corbin Sabol, who, as I just mentioned, is a patriot, a friend, local San Diego guy, absolute Twitter buddy, because this guy rains holy terror on some of the leftists on there, and so I needed somebody to do this show with me, and I reached out to him, and I appreciate you stepping up. Go ahead and introduce yourself and say hello.
Absolutely. Hello. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be given the hour and 40-minute notice to do a 2-hour show. But like Brady said, this is going to be completely unscripted, unprepared. I'm just going to do like a dialogue podcast format and have a good conversation. To everybody, my name is Corbin Sabol. I ran for state assembly here in San Diego in the 79th district. Obviously on the Republican ticket, because I'm not touching that Democratic Party with the 10,000-foot pole these days, unfortunately. And well, I ran in a heavy Democratic district, so I lost, and I didn't have $1 million backing me up like my opponent did, because I was 100% people funded, 100% grassroots funded. It is what it is. I am considering running again next election cycle, so I can continue being a delegate for the California GOP, and we can definitely get into that. And I can talk about the corruption within the California GOP that I learned that I don't know if you're aware of, Brady.
Oh, absolutely. We want to jump on that. And I am aware of it. And it's a topic I was hoping we'd hit tonight. So let's plan on jumping into that.
Yeah, we can even start with that. But other than that, I'm a former Navy veteran, 5 years in the Navy, and now I work as a contractor in support of the Navy. I'm 33 years old, in case anybody was wondering. And yeah, I'm just a guy who appreciates the sacrifices of the people that came before us to give us the life that we had today. And unfortunately, so many people don't see that. They take everything for granted. And not only do they take things for granted, they see things like capitalism as a oppressive system, when in reality, capitalism in a nutshell is just an economic system based on serving the needs of others and creating wealth based off of serving the needs of others. So I don't know why that popped into my mind, but yeah. Do you want anything to have anything to say before we get into the conversation?
Yeah. We'll do it. We'll start a little bit soft and jump into the deep stuff. I was laughing the other day, and I was kind of bummed. It didn't show up on your Twitter feed, but there was a question that was out there that was, I don't know, if there's one thing that you would want to teach this generation that's upcoming, what is the one skill set they need to be successful in life? And my response was critical thinking, because it's not being taught. People are not learning how to ask these things, and we're all suffering because of it. And I think that's kind of like the overview of everything we're going to talk about. We'll get into wokeism. We'll get into what's going on in California, all that stuff. But the basics of it is we've got a divide as a society. We've got people that have no longer learned how to think critically and figure out, and figure out solutions to disagreements. That's not happening anymore.
Well, we just receive information and we accept it as truth. And I would say if we're going to divide the people into a right and left side, I would say both sides are guilty of that. It's just being human, kind of at the end of the day. But yeah, everybody has to be careful to not accept things at face value. There's so many lies out there. They're just straight up lies. Obviously we have the people on the left-wing media that just make stuff up. And I think one of the best examples that just came into mind was during the Trump administration. The Atlantic wrote a hit piece and something about Donald Trump, and they just made something up completely out of the air and said, hey, he said this, but it wasn't true. And then it came out to be not true. But yeah, critical thinking comes in where it's like, just ask the question, just be skeptical.
Well, how many times are these fake headlines that a certain part of the media throws out there for the last 7-8 years? They throw out the headlines, the lie makes it all the way around the world and comes back, before the truth comes out. We know the whole expression, but at what point in time do these people realize they've been lied to? And that's the frustrating part. Is we would hope they would have figured that out by now.
Yeah, but people are still believing the lies. I was just talking to a neighbor who believes in this whole neighborhood is going to be flooded in 20 years or something like that, and I'm like, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah,
Because when you realize they've been peddling this lie since the 60s or the 50s or whatever, and every 10 years it's a new thing. Oh, we're going to die in 10 years. And then when that doesn't happen, it's a new thing. It's a new thing. It's like,
but they never apologize for being wrong ever.
no. Yeah, you're talking about the media?
Oh, them,
Yeah.
the they,
The media. Yeah. Well, it's not that,
the
it's not
board.
that, it's not that, oops, we lied and we don't need to apologize. It's they know they're lying.
What's
They, they
what's the expression? They lie. They know they lie. They know we
oh,
know they
yeah.
lie, and they
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I butchered that a little bit, but
Yeah. I know
we get.
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's jump in to. This is not an interview format like we did before, but I think it's important to talk about why you decided to run, what you learned while you ran, and let's jump into the corruption of the GOP, and maybe we can get into like how to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've got some ideas on that I have not necessarily shared with you, and I want your opinions on that. So
Sure. Well, the solution to fixing it is actually kind of easy. We just gotta, it's a lot of legwork and a lot of networking, but we'll get into that at the end. Your first question is why I decided to run. Was that right?
yeah, well, what inspired you? I mean, you're just a guy running a business, what have you, and then all of a sudden you keep
Yeah.
showing up in my inbox, and I see you at rallies and events. So how'd that happen?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess that all started with I'll start with my red pill moment, the red pill moment. And for anybody in the audience who's listening, to make sure you understand, when people say red pill, that's not a Republican reference, it's a Matrix reference. You know, you take the red pill and you see how far down the rabbit hole goes, or you take the blue pill.
Real quick, Corbin, this is a very sophisticated audience.
Okay, good.
We do not have to explain rape anything. You can throw it out there. These guys are going to get it.
Good. Glad to hear that. Good. Okay, so I digress. So anyway, my red pill moment. So I'm young. I'm 33 years old. My red pill moment was the Brett Kavanaugh hearings in 2018. And but prior to that, I was raised in a conservative Republican household, so I was like, okay, I leaned right my entire life, but I wasn't really paying attention. I was the sleepy guy. So Brett Kavanaugh hearings come around, and for some reason, I just saw the viciousness, and I saw the depravity, and I saw that there is something not right about this. This is not normal. And that was my red pill moment, my wake up moment. So for the next couple of years, I started paying attention. And one day at work, fast forward a couple of years later, I want to say, I don't know, shortly before COVID, maybe 2019. I don't know. The quote from Edmund Burke, which pretty much hopefully everybody here heard, is the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. And that just kind of like rung through my head randomly, just a random day. And I made a decision right then and there. You know, I'm gonna stop doing nothing and I'm gonna start doing something, whatever that was at that time. So I just started reaching out and started going to rallies and where we met along the way. And I just started networking and meeting people and just being involved with my community and learning more. And then fast forward a couple years from that, next thing you know, I get a call from the San Diego Republican office and says, "Hey, you want to run for office?" And I'm like, "What? Is this like an April Fool's joke or something like that? Or I'm just a nobody?" And they're like, "Yeah, you want to run for office?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll run for office and I'll think about it. I'll fill out the form and call me back." So I didn't really take it too seriously. So they called again and again and again, and next thing I know, I'm filing my paperwork to run for office for a state assembly. And I never saw myself as the guy running for office, and I don't think a lot of people do, unless you're groomed from a very early age to be a corrupt politician, like so many of them are. But like people like us, like you and me, like, and so many people who have ran and won, like for local school board races this past election cycle, we probably never in a million years saw ourselves running for office until we were called to and said like, "Hey, go do it, even if you're not ready or the best person. You know, you're going to learn, and you might lose," which I did not. I did end up losing, but I gave it my best shot. So that's why I decided to run for office, because it all kind of goes back to the quote from Edmund Burke: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing."
Well, you actually ran a really good campaign in a
Thank you.
challenging district, and like I said, we're practically neighbors, so I know the people in your district, and
Yeah.
you opened up a lot of eyes and woke some people up, and that's
And
saying
hopefully I can continue to do that. You know, there's a lot of eyes that need to be open. You said the audience here is pretty. I bet you everybody's eyes here are wide open. So that's a good audience.
Yeah, well, we talk mostly about the Constitution and how far away from that
Oh my
we've
God.
strayed. So that's what this show's normally about. So this is,
Yeah.
yeah, they get that. So here's the fun one I want to ask you is, so you start running for office, and so now you get involved in this machine, which is electoral politics, or the whole way it works, and it's dirty. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
everything is dirty. So just give us like three or four takeaways of just how dirty the system is. I mean, and we can jump. We're going to destroy the California GOP today. There's no way.
Oh,
There's no way the California GOP gets out of this show with a clean bill of health. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
let's start with the local BS and the local corruption. I mean, there's all, you know, just the campaign finance, the leeches that come after you. I mean, just jump into that and just tell us stuff we don't know, because you
Yeah.
lived it. You lived it.
Yeah.
You did it. You ran a campaign.
Yeah. Well, the local San Diego Republican Party, I'm not sure if there's any corruption within the local party. I'm not sure. I think they're all a bunch of good guys. But the corruption that we're talking about is on the statewide California
Gotcha.
G.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Our pet peeve with the locals is they will endorse a candidate before talking to the other grassroots groups, and
Yeah.
we want them to coordinate with us. That's our ask.
Yeah, and we saw that with sheriff, the
100%.
Summerlin and the so for anybody that's not that's outside of San Diego, for the audience, this is really goes to show you how key communication is, because here in San Diego we have the San Diego Republican Party and we have another grassroots organizations called the San Diego Gun Owners, and they're a very, very popular group. They have a huge audience, right? San Diego Gun Owners.
Less than they did before this. I mean,
Last night.
they've dropped a little bit because of what you're about to tell.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, anyway, I guess long story short is that prior to the deadline to file papers, so prior to the deadline to file, um, San Diego Republicans endorsed one candidate and the San Diego gun owners endorsed another candidate, and they were conflicted. And as a result, there was a split vote. And instead of waiting to talk to the grassroots, like Brady just mentioned, they Republicans endorsed Hammerling. San Diego gun owners endorsed a Democrat endorsed candidate, the current undersheriff at the time, Martinez, and that split the vote.
Yep.
That's the vote. Little did they know, a few days later, the grassroots, we're busting our butts over here trying to find a good quality candidate. And the day of the deadline to file for papers, we get this gentleman by the name of John Peck. And this guy is like awesome. He was
yeah.
well, I can't remember if he was a highway patrolman, but or active law enforcement. But long story short, the exact quality candidate that the gun owners would have loved him, the San Diego Republicans would have loved him, all the grassroots would have loved him. And had there just been communication between the party and the grassroots, we might have been able to actually get him to win. I don't know. That would have been tough because Kelly Martinez was the undersheriff at the time, a lot of name recognition, a lot of endorsements from the Democratic side, but it still would have been a better showing.
And that's a perfect example. I'm glad you brought it up. I worked very actively for Jonathan Peck's campaign. He's he's a good friend of mine. In fact, had you not shown up on the show, I may have reached out to him and said, "Hey, John, jump on. I need somebody to help me out." So he's a good friend. He's a good candidate. He's a constitutional sheriff.
Yes, exactly.
And that was the key. So now we're stuck without one. And
yes,
it's a bit of a problem because it matters. In terms of things like getting your CCW and everything like that. These people have a lot of, the sheriff is the highest. Is it the highest constitutionally appointed officer in your county? It's a big deal.
Yep. The sheriff has so much power that people don't understand. I mean, the sheriff, if the federal government wanted to come into a county and investigate somebody, the sheriff can go tell them to kick rocks.
It's funny. I'll do a quick little ditch into a rabbit hole. And I hate even bringing up a rumor, but it came from a pretty good source. Apparently, there's some little bit of issues in the Jonathan Mack, Sheriff Mack circles. There's some nasty rumors coming out of there about something to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have details, so I'm not going to say that something did or didn't happen, but it's a conversation that needs to be had because it's a really important movement. Douglas V. Gibbs, who, as you know, I work with very closely, had one of the constitutional sheriff guys on his radio show on KMET yesterday, and they've got a lot of really good stuff going on nationally in terms of election integrity. And I just hope we just keep hearing Yeah, it drives me nuts. There's grifters in this movement or people that profit from it and stuff like that. And I just hope to God
Yeah,
there's
like
nothing.
selling merchandise at the rallies and stuff like that. Buy my T-shirt and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's okay to make a living as an activist, but it's another to be dishonest about it or
Oh,
to break the rules. We don't know what's actually going on there, but
oh, you mean like actually like infiltrating the movement just to make money or something like that, or
well, that absolutely happened. We're not gonna
yeah,
go into this. The Truth Movement has got about a dozen guys out there selling the Galactic White Hat Federation, the space aliens that are going to come save us, Nisara Jasara. But I'm not going into that. But yeah, there
yeah,
are grifters in our movement. But I'm worried about the people that we believe have been legitimate, who've done really good things. To perhaps, yeah, let's not throw these people under the bus until we know all the facts. But right now, there are rumors out there about Sheriff Mack, and I don't know the details. So let's just leave that alone. Because the
okay,
Constitutional Sheriffs Association is a really good movement and
good,
really good people. But
yeah. Well,
but
yeah. Well, let's
yeah,
talk about all the corruption with the California GOP and whatnot and the dirty politics. One thing that this is one of my biggest complaints with the Republican side is that how organized the Democratic side is. You know, the Democratic side is a well-funded, well-organized machine, and for all I know, which is probably very likely, they get their orders from the top, and that trickles down, and they just run for it. They just go because it's a collective mindset on that side. And over on the right side, if we're going to split people between or put people into two groups, which I hate, and I would love to talk about getting rid of labels and stuff like that. But if we are going to divide the people between the left and the right politically, the left is very organized. The left is very well funded. And the right, we're not well funded and we're not organized. So as a result, when I'm running for office as a newbie, so to speak, first time candidate, no idea what to do. I basically was told, good luck, have fun, with no real assistance, not only from the California GOP, but from the San Diego Republican Party. For whatever reason, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Maybe there's some good reasons that I didn't get any assistance, but when I say like no assistance, I got no assistance. Not only that, but the California GOP expects the candidates to raise money for them. And if you're not raising money and cycling that around with the California GOP, yeah, you're probably not going to get any assistance. So that's one aspect of the dirty politics behind the California GOP is that you're expected as a candidate to raise money and like essentially deposit that into either your county party or the California GOP. So then they can give you a little something in return, some assistance, some whatever.
yeah, and that's a really good example of you know pretty much everyone here has heard me talk about how the national political party system is a major issue, and we can probably get into that tonight of my solutions. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But you mentioned the right versus left, and I think it's really important that I think if we're going to really turn the ship in the right direction, we need to stop using their terminology and really
Mm-hmm.
talk about it, because right now they say right's Republican and left is Democrat, and I think
Mm-hmm.
the way to look at it is the far right is anarchy and the far left is 100% tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution is a little bit well. Okay, so the Articles of Confederation were about 10% from anarchy, just enough government to allow people to do commerce with each other. And they found
Mm-hmm.
out very quickly it wasn't quite enough. So they moved another 5% towards government and gave us the Constitution. Now, everything that's happened ever since has been making us drift further to the left. So, and Doug Gibbs says this all the time. He goes, I'm a constitutionalist. The Republicans are to the left of me. The Democrats are to the left of me. Fascists are to the left of me. Communists are to the left of me. And he's right. What I'd like to do is flip the axis and have people actually stop talking about this right-left dichotomy, because that's so ingrained into our heads. It's part of the tribalist language, the lingo that we just can't get past. Red, blue, right,
Yep.
left. That's garbage. So
Yep.
if we flip the axis and you say down at the bottom here is anarchy, which doesn't work. It always ends up in the tyranny. But we get a little bit of limited government. That's 10 to 15% off the bottom, just enough government to keep the order and preserve our rights, or protect our rights is a good way of saying it, conserve them. And anything above that, it inches towards tyranny. Then
Yeah.
the whole right left argument disappears. So
Mm.
I think we need to change the argument, and because they do this on purpose. Right versus left. This whole tribalism is designed to keep us from looking up and realizing who's really pulling the puppet strings.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah, I would say something very, very absolutely similar. Instead of saying right and left, just say people versus the oppressive regime or whatever like that.
Yeah,
You know, the
liberty. Yeah, liberty versus tyranny. That's the
yeah,
actual.
yeah,
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 and
or
that's
freedom. I say power. I don't say freedom so much. I don't say liberty so much. I say power. I like using language against them because that's what they do. They're masters at language. They are masters at messaging and using language against them. So if I for your audience, for the audience here, if I could encourage everybody, don't say freedom, don't say liberty, say power, because that's going to resonate more with the left. And then you can also say, okay, what gives you power? Our rights, our inalienable rights give us power. Liberty gives us power. Freedom gives us power. And we want to preserve our power, right? That's good. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's going to resonate more with the left side of the left side of the house when you say things like power, and I want to preserve my power as an individual and empower and transfer power to the people, power to the people, right? With that raised fist kind of thing, but not in the sense of not in the sense, because you know what I mean? They say power to the people, but what they really mean is tyranny.
so. Let me use one of my other favorite analogies that agrees with what you just said. Is we were talking about power. Is I look at all the different powers of a government as a pie. Fair enough.
Okay.
And with the Constitution, we sliced off a couple pieces of the pie that the states, representing we the people,
Mm-hmm.
had all the power, and they said we need a central government, and we're going to slice off a pie to take care of international affairs because we
Mm-hmm.
can't do that. We need a central government to do that,
Yep.
and we also need another slice to settle intrastate disputes. That needs to be done. There has to be a central power to do that. That's why we've set up a federal judiciary. If Maryland
Right.
and Delaware have a dispute, there has to be central. So we carved out those two slices of pie. What's happened since? And by the way, if the federal government, or what they call the general government, wants more pie, they can have it. They just have to go through the process of an amendment so that the
Right.
states agree with that. But what
Right.
they've done ever since, basically 1791, when Hamilton started giving us the first Bank of the United States, is they've taken more and more pie. So right now we've got basically no pie left. We
Yeah.
need to
The
we need
people.
to we need to carve back all those slices of pie. This is all the three-letter agencies, everything. The central government was never intended to do that stuff.
Correct.
So we take the power back by we take it. So I want my pie back. I've said it on
Yeah.
this show before, but that's my analogy.
Yeah,
It's a
but so many people out there will look at these three-letter agencies as a net positive. They look at the normies out there, the people aren't paying attention. They'll look at an organization like the FBI and be like, "Oh, we need the FBI." They stopped the mafias or they got rid of the mafias in the 1930s.
Well,
Well,
did
and
they
then I'll finish out.
did they really? No,
No,
but
because no, they
the
didn't. I'll say they didn't eliminate mafias because they are a mafia themselves. They didn't eliminate mafias to get rid of to protect the people. They got rid of mafias to eliminate the competition.
well, I'll say it differently. I'll say the mafia and the CIA and the FBI started working together, and
Oh,
yeah, that
interesting.
that's
Okay.
how I tell the story. Yeah, I got a video I got to send you of a presentation I did recently. You'll love it.
Yeah. Well,
No,
either
there's
way, either they started working with the mafias or they became the new mafia. Half of
well,
the dozen, six of the other.
yeah, what happened in World War II? I'll do a quick divergence. In World War II, there's something called Operation Underworld, where they were, U.S. military effort was worried because there was sabotage in New York harbors, and there were dock workers that were communists, Nazis, etc. So how are you going to patrol the New York docks? You want the mafia to do that.
Mhm.
So basically, Lucky Luciano, who's already been put in jail by Dewey, who was the New York governor at the time, they create Operation Underworld. Luciano puts the Sicilian mafia to work for the U.S. government. They start coordinating with the OSS, which is the predecessor of the CIA, and they helped us with our first landing in Sicily. And bottom line is, once you get into bed with the mob, you stay in bed with the mob. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, this stuff goes on. This story ties into the FBI, the CIA, the international banking, the human
Wow.
trafficking, the child
Yeah.
trafficking, the Epstein network. This is all part of the same thing, but I do other shows on that, so we're not going to go all the way down that. But since you touched on it, I thought I'd give an overview.
Yeah. And all of this started what, 100 or so years ago?
I'm going to say it really got bad in the 1920s or 30s, but if you really want to know how bad the corruption is, how this ruling class, I mean, you can go back. I can take it all the way back to the Roman days.
Oh
you know,
yeah,
through
or
Venice.
even
Yeah,
before that, look at the Aztecs or something like that, and the priests or something like
yeah.
that, and
I would say Babylon, but well, it is Easter, so we could
yeah,
go biblical on this. I
I,
can't
I,
doc.
I would I would say for all of human history, there has been a ruling class,
Yeah,
but there's one thing that's different that's given the people the power, and I would love to talk about this more. Is that there's one thing that's never happened. So for all of human history, there has been a ruling class. You can look at the Mayans and the high priests. You can look at the Roman times and the emperors and stuff like that, to modern times with the politicians and the corporations. But there's one thing that humans haven't had before, and that's social media. Social media is such a good tool to transfer power back to the people, and I wish more people would use it.
do you see me smiling right now?
Yeah.
So you just really just teed me up for one of my favorite little rants. So I'm gonna do it. It's gonna take a couple of minutes, but if you don't
Okay.
mind,
Yeah.
um, so one of the ways these oligarchs, the people in power, have ruled over us forever is they control the information flow.
Mhm.
Um, let's go back to like 1300, and basically the Catholic Church were the only, and they controlled literacy. They were the only official word of what the Bible said.
Yep.
At the same time, these ruling families, the firstborn son inherits the land, the second-born son goes and works for the church, the Catholic Church. This is
Mhm.
how they maintained their power, and it worked. There were lords and serfs, and they owned 99% of the assets, and they were pretty happy. We were not.
Yeah. And then the
Um,
printing thing came around, or the ability.
exactly. This is exactly where I was going to go. Is Gutenberg shows up.
Gutenberg, that guy. Yeah, I forgot the
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, Gutenberg in the 1400s shows up, invents the printing press, and all of a sudden you got pamphlets going around to different cities. So we actually know what the little hamlet 30 miles away is talking about. People are commuting, having open discourse. This is the best
Yeah.
thing that ever happened to humanity. Same time, the most printed book of all time is the Bible, and people stopped listening to the Catholic Church. 100 years later, this leads to the Reformation and the Renaissance, free thought and free religion. And you get free thinkers like Montesquieu and John Locke, and these are the intellectual forefathers of our founding fathers. So in 1776, we fight the revolution, and we are finally away from the tyrants. And they've been trying to get it back ever since. Fast forward another 100 years, how do people communicate? It's newspaper. Well,
Hmm.
we got all kinds of great examples of how they were using newspapers to try to get their power back. My favorite is the congressional testimony in 1915 where J.P. Morgan and a bunch of shipbuilders and munitions builders bought 25 East Coast newspapers for the
Wow.
specific purpose of getting us into World War One, so they could
Wow.
profiteer off the wars.
Yep.
Next stage, we get radio, RCA. That this was centrally controlled from day one. Then we get television centrally controlled. Now they have the power back. They've controlling communications. They do these same power brokers, these same oligarchs. And what do we have in the 20th century? Oh, more death, two world wars, all kinds of fake wars, Vietnam, Korea, etc., because they control the media again. And then we get the internet, and that was going to be their death blow for them to take their ultimate control. And somehow they lost control of that because since 2020, with COVID, what have you, despite unprecedented censorship, and you and I have both felt it.
Oh,
We're social media buddies, so I get that. But we've had unprecedented censorship. The word's still getting out. The polls still go in our favor. We have beaten the censorship. They lost control. So we are living through Gutenberg 2.0. And that was my rant.
right now you'd say right this very over the past year or so is Gutenberg 2.0.
I think it's really the last 5, 6, 7 years. We're winning the information war.
Oh, okay, for about 5 or 7 years
Yeah.
or so.
But
Okay,
but we
7
started,
years, about
yeah,
25. Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
They started really censoring right after the whole J6 thing. And we thought that would shut us down. No, we just gotten stronger, bolder, and
Yeah,
louder.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, thank God for people like Kevin McCarthy and Tucker Carlson for the J6 tapes and releasing that information, just being transparent. Just doing something like that was huge. Just releasing that information and showing it to the public and like, hey, look, it's not what you thought it was. What were they trying to hide? Why were they censoring that information? But yeah, so for anybody that's listening who's not, it's one thing to share information with people that you are like-minded with, and this is why I like Twitter so much, because it's easy to engage with people that aren't like-minded. Get on Twitter, for anybody that's not on Twitter that's listening to this, get on Twitter and make an account and be active and follow accounts that aren't like-minded like as yourself, and share information with people that aren't like-minded.
No, I mean, well, I probably hit like about a dozen times on your tweets a day.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
but
I,
but you keep
I'm
saying
very,
you keep saying stuff I agree with, so of course I'm going to hit it. But
yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm very active on Twitter. Anybody can follow me on Twitter at Corbin Sabol. I don't know if I can put it into the chat or something like that.
it's already been done. We've got one of our very loyal followers, Sons of Liberty, puts all our social media links in there. So
Oh,
you
perfect.
so no, I should have told you to do this before we started the show. Look at your followers before the show.
Ooh,
Look at them after. I bet you gain a few,
okay. Yeah.
maybe more than a few. This is a good audience. We got like almost 600 people watching live, and this does go out on Rumble too as well.
Oh,
So
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I bet your Twitter followers go up today.
Yeah.
So
Well, I would appreciate it if anybody out there would follow me on Twitter. I try to be as active as I possibly can. And I try to, I said it earlier. I used language against them. So I use power as an example, but I mean, let's just let's look at the Second Amendment and gun control. Again, I hate the left versus right divide, but if you're gonna put people between a left and a right camp, let's just look at the left and how they call the right. What do they call the right when it comes to the Second Amendment? You guys are pro-gun radical nut jobs, and you just love the guns and stuff like that. Well, no, I mean, we do love guns, but how about instead of them calling us nut jobs, we call them anti-gun extremists, anti-gun radicals. Let's use language against them, you know? And I'm just a normal dude, a responsible citizen who follows the law and appreciates the Second Amendment and has a couple of guns. That's it. I'm a normal dude. You, not you, Brady, you, leftist person, are an anti-gun radical extremist, right? Use language against them. And you can use any example, right? Any example. Climate change. Oh, you really like you're really concerned about climate change? Well, how come you're not a big advocate for nuclear energy? Oh, you're not a big advocate for nuclear energy? How come you want to watch the world burn? Right? I mean, pick a flavor. There's so many things we can use to use language against them. Any topic. Absolutely any topic.
Well, and you brought up Kavanaugh as your red pill moment, and
Yeah.
I think that's an important one. I mean, I was red pilled. Well, I was skeptical of the government my entire life. I got really skeptical when ClimateGate happened in 2009. Of course, I was working for Wall Street at the time, and I saw all that BS. And so I was just basically, these people are off the reservation. I'm going to spend the rest of my life fighting against them.
What was that for? So 2009, I was only 19 at the time. So
ClimateGate. So what happened was there was a bunch of emails from the University of East Anglia in England that was between the University of Pennsylvania and a couple other colleges, and the key climate scientists, and I air quote that because they aren't scientific at all, talking about how they're manipulating data, silencing opposing opinions, and basically trying to fabricate this doom and gloom climate thing in their own emails, in their own words between each other. Once you read this, you can't believe the science ever again. Yeah, that broke in 2009. I spent an entire weekend reading all of the emails. But if you just go into your favorite search engine that's not Google and go ClimateGate, and I'll probably put a link into the chat here if I can get around to it.
I like how you said your favorite search engine that's not Google.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to promote those guys.
Yeah.
Anyways, ClimateGate was a big deal. It told you that process matters, honesty matters. If you don't have integrity in the process, then the result's going to be is going to be inauthentic. And that's what the entire climate, quote unquote, science is. It's been inauthentic because the process is completely bastardized by a few people silencing their opinions. That's what the whole peer review thing that we saw with COVID was the same damn thing. It wasn't science. It was a preordained political result.
Mhm.
That's not how this is supposed to work. We've stopped being a scientific world, and politics have dominated the science. And that's got to be fixed. That means that has to be fixed.
That's tough. I mean, and then when you hear things like the science is settled or things like that, or Lord Fauci saying I am the science or something like that, well, for starters, the science is never settled.
Hey, Corbin, define science for me. Just define it.
Oh God, the pursuit. If there is a one definition, I would just say the pursuit of finding
Truth.
truth, or
Uh,
pursuit of truth, pursuit of
So
knowledge, or something like
yeah,
that. Or
you throw a hypothesis out there, you test it, you get your results, you analyze it, and then you release it for other people to be able to cross analyze it.
yeah,
They do the opposite. We're not going to give you the data. No, well, fuck you.
mm,
Then your results don't matter. They're invalid
yeah,
by definition.
yeah. Or we're not going to put the ingredients on the vaccine. It's just a blank piece of paper.
Or we'll release it in 85 years. You know,
Yeah. Oh my God. They were trying to like keep all that stuff for what, 75, 85 years or something like that. It's like when you hear that,
the second
it's
they even
like,
tried that, it's like, dude, I'm done. I mean, just
yeah,
no.
yeah. It's like I don't understand how it's tough. It's tough dealing with the people that are so locked into that lefty collective mindset. And again, I hate the labels. I hate the left versus right. And I love to talk about that for a little bit, the dangers of labels.
Do it.
You know,
No,
I'm gonna
go off on a tangent. We got like another hour and 20 minutes to kill. So go
yeah.
off on any tangent you want.
I'm definitely going to offend a lot of people here when I say don't label yourself as a patriot. Don't, because labels, all they do is they put you in a mental box. So any label, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, patriot, anarchist, whatever, libertarian, any label that you can possibly think of, left, right, those are labels. All they do is put you in a mental box and they restrict your way of thinking. Not only that, but they make us they make it easy to make assumptions of one another. So let's just pretend Brady is a lefty and I'm somebody on the right. My definition of conservative or Republican, or my interpretation of those labels, is going to be completely different than somebody on the left. So right off the bat, when we label ourselves and we introduce ourselves as a conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever it is, unless the two people talking have the same definition of those labels, right off the bat, you're up to no good. And that's how they divide us. They divide us with labels. So to you and to the people in the audience and to me, like you can say patriot and okay, like I get it. I understand what that means. You love your country, you love inalienable rights, you love liberty. But what does patriot mean to other people? Insurrectionist, violent anarchist? I don't know, right? So be very careful with labels and try not to label yourself. That's why I don't put any labels on myself. I'm Corbin. And actually, I would say the only label that I might put on myself is a constitutionalist,
Well,
because that's a label that, okay, it's somewhat tangible. It's like you can point to it. You can point to the Constitution and be like, "Oh, you're a constitutionalist." There's only one interpretation of that label. You follow the Constitution.
well, unfortunately, that statement, which should be true, is not, because they've been bastardizing the interpretation.
True.
So, if you look at my Twitter profile, you'll see something called original intent. Are the first
Yeah.
two words in there, because we spend a lot of our time reading the words of the people who actually wrote it. What did they mean when they said it? Not what did a bunch of lawyers interpret it to mean 100 years later.
Yeah.
So with the Constitution, if we actually are lucky enough to go to a convention of states, which I think should have happened every 10 years,
Yeah. It's gaining ground. It's gaining ground. There.
Look, there's 7 articles in the Constitution. 6 of them are in play every single day, and we completely ignored Article 5.
Yeah.
And that's specifically because the federal government does not want us overseeing them. It's the only tool we have to rein in the federal government, so they can intentionally keep us from having one. We should have
Well,
had one every 10.
we just have weak governors out there that aren't doing their job.
Well, that is true. What if I were to tell you right this minute there are 49 active petitions for an Article 5 convention?
Right this second, there's
Right this
49
minute. They
active
don't.
petitions.
49 states have an active petition. They don't expire. We could have an Article 5 convention tomorrow.
Wow. I
Like,
did not know that.
yeah, Mark Meckler and the Convention of States Action guys, they do a lot of good work. And they've been asking me to be one of their precinct, or whatever they call
Oh yeah. No, I was I reached out to them a few years ago.
Yeah,
And
I've spoken to them. They're good people. They're quote unquote patriots, since you made that
yeah.
a dirty word tonight.
I didn't mean to make it a dirty word.
But they're saying no, it's not a dirty word. Being a patriot is always going to be a good word, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into nationalism versus a federal republic tonight, or I will. we're a federal republic, not a national republic, and there's a difference between the two. And we could do an entire show on why the Pledge of Allegiance has got a lot of fundamental flaws. So when
Ooh,
I say I pledge allegiance to the republic, I say federal republic because it matters. The difference matters.
interesting.
But Meckler and the Convention of States actions, they're selling the idea that we can have a limited Convention of States. No, you can't. There's nothing in Article 5 that even remotely suggests that. If we go to convention, everything's on the table. And everyone goes, well, you do that, you're going to scare everybody. You're going to have a runaway convention. I want a runaway convention. We should have been having a runaway convention every 10 years to rein in the federal government. We've got 240 years of a runaway federal government that needs to be reined in. The Philadelphia Convention was a runaway convention. It gave us the Constitution, the best document ever written, or for 2,000 years, I would say. I'll put the Bible a little bit ahead of the Constitution. But that being said, these are all the talking points. George Soros pushes those same talking points. As much as I like the John Birch Society people, and they are great, great people, they are afraid of a constitution. Well, I debate them on this all the time in person, and I'll do it on air. And I'll invite them on because they're wrong about what a constitutional convention could be. We don't have look. If we live in a country where 13 quote unquote red states won't say no to a ridiculous amendment that's proposed in a quote unquote runaway convention, then our country's already lost. So let's bring it on. Let's accelerate. Let's have these conversations. Everyone's afraid to have them. I'm done with this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up an interesting point, and this is so. Let me just ask you a question: do you think we still have time to turn our ship around? I mean, or are we a lost cause?
No, we're not a lost cause, and the bad guys haven't won. You know how you know they haven't won because they're still lying to us. Every single day they got their 4 a.m. talking points and they lie to us all day long. So still trying.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I'm super active on Twitter, as I already mentioned, and it is like I follow all the mainstream media outlets, the legacy outlets. It is nothing but lies. I just saw on MSNBC tweeted out Jen Psaki, former press house secretary. She said, if you are in favor of law enforcement or something, I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. Her tweet was like, if you are in favor of law enforcement or something like that, direct your aggression at the MAGA movement or something like that. And I was like, is this satire? Are you the Babylon Bee? Are you the Onion? It's insane. They lie so much, and we talked about that earlier at the very beginning. But they know they're lying. And this is a quote from Karl Marx, I think. Accuse your enemy of what you're doing as you are doing it to create confusion, and that's all they do.
Is that the origin of that quote? Because I know it's 100% accurate, and I've been looking for the origin. If it's Marx,
I think so. I think. I mean, when I looked it up, it came up with Karl Marx.
Hey, chat. Anybody know the origin of accuse the opponent of doing exactly what you were doing yourself? I've been trying to find the origin. I don't know, so we'll see if it shows up.
If it's not Karl Marx, then it's not.
No, I don't know, but the communists have been using that specifically for quite some time, and that's exactly what they do. You're very accurate. I'm just curious about the origin because I haven't found it, and I've been looking for it.
Yeah, and I just started watching the chat as we were talking here. So if anybody says something interesting, then Global, okay, yeah.
It could be Global.
Yeah.
I mean,
but anyway, so on that same example, I'll give it, and I see it all the time, and I feel like they've been ramping that up lately because I didn't see it as much earlier, but it's been into overdrive, that mentality of accusing your enemy of what you're doing as you're doing it to create confusion. Oh, somebody said Saul Alinsky.
That's what I thought. I thought Alinsky was correct once upon a time, but I don't know. Look.
Yeah, but what I was saying is we had Newsom, our beloved governor, is launching this campaign for democracy. And for anybody that didn't see it, it's basically this 2-minute ad on pointing the finger at those bad Republicans. And one thing that he said was that the Republicans are restricting speech. And that is what really got me. Restricting speech, really? When he signed AB 2098. Do you remember what that is by any chance? AB
I don't
298.
go ahead. I remember
It
a
literally
lot of these
restricts.
ABs pissed me off, so
Yeah,
go
yeah,
for it.
yeah, yeah. AB 2098 was signed by Newsom last legislative session, which literally restricts the speech of healthcare professionals if it goes against the COVID narrative. Now,
Yep.
granted, it doesn't say it goes against the COVID narrative in the bill, but if you've been paying attention long enough, if you rub two brain cells together, if you can read between the lines, you would know that it's the government's attempt to silence healthcare professionals, literally restrict speech, by the way, that he's accusing the Republicans of doing, if they say something bad about the vaccine or counter
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
narrative.
you literally, a doctor literally cannot tell someone not to get the vaccine. They can't say a negative word about it because
Yeah, and that's what.
because the experts, the officials,
Yeah, yeah,
have said that the vaccine is good.
and
And
it under the guise of the greater good,
public
protecting the health of the public.
public health might be one of the one of those. You talked about language earlier, but that's one of what in God's name is public health? You're responsible for your own health.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. What is public health? And I mean, maybe we can shift gears here a little bit and talk about health. I mean, when we talked over the phone a couple hours ago, we talked about the necessity of eating clean, you know, taking care of yourself and exercising. I
Yeah,
mean, that,
you and I are both big proponents for the healthy lifestyle. So go ahead and shift gears and take us there.
yeah, absolutely. I would
It's
say,
an important conversation.
yeah, very, very important conversation. And for anybody that's listening to this, if you don't have a physical lifestyle, if you're not, let's just say I work an office job. I sit in an office 9 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 80 hours a pay period, standard office job, nothing crazy. But I go work out and I work out. I try to hit the gym 5 days a week. It is so, so important to have a physically active lifestyle, right? Working out cures depression, right? It is the number one antidepressant. Exercise, running, swimming, lifting weights, whatever your cup of tea is. It cures diseases when you combine it with eating right. There was a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. I would encourage everybody to watch Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. You could probably rent it on everybody's favorite store, Amazon Prime or something like that. So basically, 10,000-foot view, long story short, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. You got this big fat guy, 400 pounds or whatever like that. He's on all these sorts of drugs and medications. He starts juicing. So he starts doing a 100% juice diet. I mean, fruits and vegetables, he juices it, consumes it, that he turns that into his diet. He doesn't eat or drink anything else other than water, obviously. So water and juicing. He loses all his weight and he gets off all his drugs. That's the power of having a clean, nutritious diet. And people say that eating clean and healthy is more expensive. I would say it's less expensive because you're going to avoid all of the medical bills that come down later in life by eating like crap.
Well,
So
yeah, processed foods in general, just knock it off with that. Go toward just basic minimum. Stop eating processed foods.
Oh, and here's another piece of advice. Don't worry about calories. Don't count your calories, count your ingredients. So, oh man, I wish I can go get something in my cupboard or something like that. But for anybody, go get something out of your pantry and go look at the ingredients. If you don't know what it is on the ingredient label, why are you putting it in your body? If you don't know what it is, if you can't even pronounce it, why are you putting it in your body? You shouldn't, right? But we're sold this lie that we can just consume anything and put things into our body. But I would say I know for a fact that all of these diseases and ailments that we have, the type 2 diabetes, that's because of our unhealthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And to
100%.
tie this back, because this is a political conversation, where did this stuff come from? It's the FDA. Who created the FDA? It's the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Carnegies. And why is food and drug administered by the same people? Yeah, they're the ones who. You've got big pharma.
Wow.
You've got
Interesting. I haven't
big
thought about
agro.
that.
Yeah. This absolutely happened. These are the same people. These are the eugenicists, the technocrats. They're the ones that want us all gone. That think the world is 90% overpopulated. It all ties into the same damn conversation.
Yeah. Well, keep us sick with the unhealthy foods, and then cure the disease with the pills, and
And glued to a television that messes with
Go
your
to a television.
brainwaves, and they tell you to eat Fruit Loops and make cute little cartoon characters tell you to eat sugary cereals and other snacks. Now the
And they
stuff.
tell you that eggs and meat is bad for you, and butter is bad for you, and raw milk is bad for you.
Well, you're a little bit younger than me, so you probably didn't grow up with a food pyramid that was shoved down our throats, and it's the opposite of what we should be doing. And someone in the chat very accurately said, "Eat meat." Yeah, protein's a good freaking
Yes,
thing.
yes, absolutely. Eat meat, eggs, meat, grass-fed butter, things like that.
The diet that really changed my life was called the anti-inflammation diet. That's where you do like a 2 parts vegetable or fruit to 1 part protein, eat 6 small meals a day, and it makes sense because that's how we evolved. Was we're well, I'm gonna
Grazing and foraging and stuff like that, and
occasionally have a good chunk of meat on something like that, but at the end of the
yeah,
day, that got me back into college shape. I dropped 40 pounds, and a
yeah,
little bit of exercise helped as well, and that's
yeah.
important. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
so
it's all about keeping us sick so we can be controlled, I think.
yeah,
Or
well,
there's some connection there between keeping us sick and controlling us.
it's not necessarily the quantity of what you put in; it's the quality of it to put in your body. If it's healthy vegetables, organic, what have you, fruit and vegetables, and organic fruits and eggs, you're going to be okay. It's the
Might be
pro.
somebody just chatted, might be nice to afford such luxurious eggs. I'll tell you what, I just got 5 chickens myself. 5 chickens cost me $26.
We're
And they're still growing right now, but once they start laying eggs, I'm gonna have free eggs for life. So if you got a small backyard, which my backyard ain't that big, get a little coop, get some chickens, some Tractor Supply or whatever like that. There you go.
I
There's
was
your free
we were,
eggs.
we're joking about that at lunch at brunch today, and I said if you really want to start getting dates in the future on these dating things, just put I own 5 chickens, and no, you're gonna be an attractive person.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the best way to, oh man, the best way to, so earlier I said something about power, like power. I don't like using freedom and liberty. I say power. One of the best ways to empower yourself is to break yourself free from this medical tyranny or whatever that we're dealing with. Make yourself independent, healthy, exercise, eat right, eat clean, get out from under the thumb of these corrupt insurance companies. Here, I'll give you a little bit of insight. So, insurance companies in California, with our taxpayer dollars, they'll pay for a 16-year-old to cut off her breasts under gender affirming care. Which, using language, don't say gender affirming care, say it's mutilation. When somebody says something about gender affirming care, if you're having a conversation with somebody, ask them, it's not gender affirming care. It's literally child mutilation, but I digress. So the insurance companies will fund child mutilation, gender affirming care, but they will not fund a functional medicine doctor who practices medicine in a way to cure diseases. Right? So my wife is in the middle of a functional medicine doctor treatment so she can get off a couple of drugs. 100% out of pocket that we had to pay for this, not covered by insurance. What does that tell you?
Well, this tells me the system's completely whacked, and well, that ties into who creates the system. The people that buy the politicians, they create regulations that prevent competition, and
Yeah,
therefore they're able to. It goes down to the definition of the word regulate, which is what we talked about the pie earlier.
yep,
The federal government had no business being involved in this stuff in the first place. They got involved because special interests wanted them involved and said, "Oh, go create laws, and nobody's going to say anything about it because we control the newspapers, and they're able to get away with it."
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's the system we're up against.
yeah.
200 years of this bullshit.
How many people, this is just a question, how many people do you think are out there that see the system as a good, as like a necessity or something like that, or government's looking out for us and government has our best interests in heart? Like, do you think that is shifting, or I don't know?
Well, it's shifting, but here's the problem, my friend. Is let's say you go to college, you follow all the rules, you go to college, and you say you take a government job at age 21.
Mm,
You'll work for the next 30 years, and you're basically a welfare recipient because you work for the government. You're just pushing paper and regulations. You haven't produced anything. You haven't done
yeah,
anything to contribute. So you're a welfare recipient that you and I, as taxpayers, are paying for. Then this person retires and lives till they're 90. So basically, they got 71 years,
on a government pension.
71 years of being a welfare recipient. Now, that's a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah.
So, and it turns out that about 90% of those people that I just described vote for a certain party. They're not going to give up their free deal. So what we're really looking at, they talk about right versus left, and I talk about liberty versus tyranny. But
Mhm.
really, you have the state against the people is what's going on. And these people have no reason. I mean, they're going to do everything in their power to silence us, shut us up, because they've got the free ride. We're the ones who have to go out there and actually make a living, create a business, pay their taxes, survive
Yep.
their bullshit regulations. And that's what it is. It's state versus the people. It is statism. This is a look, if there's any libertarians listening here, you guys have all heard this argument. This is what the libertarians have been talking about for 20 years. And they've been, or a little more, and they've been right. There's a
Yeah.
reason I voted for Ron Paul 4 times.
Yeah. I voted for 2016. I voted for who ran in Gary, whoever the libertarian candidate was in 2016. I voted for that guy.
Well, yeah, libertarians have been unfortunately the party's been completely whacked in the head. I was actually I was a registered libertarian, and I was involved in the San Diego Libertarian Party's executive committee, and
Okay.
got a little bit involved statewide and national. And I'm good friends with Adam Kokesh, who ran for president in 2020. But I realized that the Libertarian Party was just as not quite as corrupt as the Republicans and Democrats. But I'm a registered independent for a reason. Political parties are a big problem. Now, the current
Yeah.
Libertarian Party, I was ticked off because I was still on their mailing list, and they were sending me out a bunch of inclusivity. The Libertarian Party is inclusive. I go, okay, so you lost my vote. I don't want you to be inclusive. I want you to fight for my, individual rights. That's what the libertarian.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that's changed. The new Libertarian Party is on the right track, and I threw this out there the last couple of weeks, and I think I'm going to push this a little bit. If Donald Trump is going to win the Republican primaries, there's too many Trump supporters. That's going to happen. He's going to be the Republican
Yeah.
nominee.
He's going to go to the general election.
Yeah. What if he were to pick a libertarian as his vice presidential pick? That's
I
like
am. Ooh, that's. I'm glad you brought that up because I would be surprised if Tulsi Gabbard is not his vice presidential pick.
interesting. She hasn't earned the trust of the conservative base, but she may be able to bring some crossover voters. I
Well,
don't.
she's been going around and doing all the talks for the past year or so, maybe the
Yeah.
past year and a half, and really building that name recognition. I think she talked at CPAC. She's on Tucker all the time. She's got a huge social media game, and she's going to all the the right leaning talks to get her name out there and to build that trust.
Well,
Yeah,
you talk about not doing labels. So who is Tulsi Gabbard? She's pretty darn good on foreign policy. I mean,
Mhm.
I agree with it. I mean, she's anti-war, which is that's a good start.
Okay.
Anybody who starts with anti-war, we're off to a good start. But she's still Tulsi Gabbard, who used to be, we know. I mean, we can dig up her videos, what she said 7-8 years ago,
Yeah.
and there's a little questionable past. I don't know. I don't know. Was she like comes from some kind of a little bit offbeat religious background with her family? In Hawaii. I don't know that whole story. I haven't done the deep dive, but no, it's a good point. She could definitely be out there and maybe bring some crossover voters. But what about a really good libertarian candidate? And I bring it
Like,
up. I bring it up because I love Trump as someone who fights against the people that we don't like. But oops,
well, Tulsi's anti-establishment for sure. I mean,
she is, well, she
she's
is
bragging,
now. She
she's
is.
bragging against the Restrict Act, and she's raising awareness about the Restrict Act,
Yeah,
which,
she's right about a lot of things.
yeah,
I'm not saying I'm not poo-pooing your idea at all.
is there a libertarian candidate out there with name recognition like Tulsi?
Well, you asked the question in the right way. Does the name recognition part? There are some people with great policies, and but no, they haven't been in. The mainstream media ignores it. It's the Ron Paul treatment. They ignore them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you get Robert RFK Jr. is now running in the Democrat.
yep. I just chatted about that.
What
RFK.
they're, well, they're absolutely going to give him the Ron Paul treatment. they're going to try to pretend he does not exist, even though he's a
Correct.
candidate. And that's going to
Correct.
be that's interesting. And they have to, because his main topics are COVID policy, and they can't have that discussed.
Correct. Correct. Imagine him on the debate stage talking about that or bringing
That's what
that
I'm,
up.
dude. That's what I'm dreaming of. That's why I
Yeah.
love. That's why I love Vivek Ramaswamy. I know you and I
Yeah.
both know Vivek is not ready to be president of the United States. And I think Vivek knows that. But he did a great interview on with Tim Pool 2 days ago,
I
and
just listened to that yesterday, the whole thing.
yeah,
That was
bro,
really, really good.
yeah. Well, we got to talk about what they talked about with the 14th Amendment. I'm crafting
Yeah.
an email. I'm crafting an email to both Tim and Vivek that I hope they get to read, because they got most of it right. But fascinating. Vivek Ramaswamy is pro-Trump. He gets that. He just thinks he's a younger, outsider, newer version of Trump that could
Hmm.
probably push the America First ball further down the field. This is a good guy. He comes from my field of work, and so I know his reputation. I know people that know him.
Oh, do
Um,
you?
oh
Okay.
yes, I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's rock solid. Um,
Nice. So
yeah,
he's not what what I've heard compare he's not a what did somebody say or something he's a WEF puppet or something like that or a
mm-mm.
Soros puppet or something like that.
No,
No.
no, Vivek is and he said this on Tim Pool, so it's Vivek. We got to be say it correctly.
Vivek.
No, it's a Vivek.
Vivek.
Yeah, that's how his first name is pronounced. So we'll give him he made that clear. So I'm going to try to get it right, even though
I
it
bet
looks like
his last name is easier to pronounce than his first name than Ramaswamy.
yeah. No, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's self-made.
Yeah.
Um, probably has some. Anybody who's dealing with that level of finance, you're going to have some interesting connections. I
Yeah.
mean, Peter Thiel.
Are there any I gotta rag we talked about the Libertarian Party earlier. I gotta rag on them a little bit and God, they really annoy me sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Um with I encourage every libertarian voter to vote for the Republican candidate, whoever that is, and not stick with your guns, especially on the federal level. And the reason why I say that is because there's no viable libertarian candidate. I get it, on the federal level, or even on a congressional level or a state level. There's no viable there's a 0% chance a
because
libertarian candidate is going to win.
because of the national political party system, which we're going to get to tonight. Hey,
Yeah.
real quick, I just want to answer a question in the chat and then continue. DRL 778 Boomer Qtard says, "Is Vivek a natural born citizen?" We asked that question. We're looking into it. Because Doug Gibbs is the one who's normally on the show with the lawsuit against Kamala Harris, because she is not a natural born citizen. If Vivek is not a natural born citizen, then no, he can't be president or vice president, just like Kamala can't, just like Ted Cruz can't, just like Marco Rubio can't, and Barack Obama couldn't. Natural born citizen means both of your parents were citizens in the time of your birth. And that's in the
Wow.
Constitution. That's why we're in court on that. I'm not going to rehash that tonight, but I gave you the overview for the audience and your benefit, Corbin. It's a good question. I don't know Vivek's. God, it's harder to say that way. I don't know his history, but that's been asked. It's a good question. And by the way, Corbin, that case is stuck in the Ninth Circuit right now, challenging whether Kamala could even be president. But go back to what you were saying.
Really? Wow. Interesting. So
Yeah.
I mean I didn't know that about the natural born citizen is that your parents had to
Yeah,
be
I'll shoot you the link so you can read it for yourself. I'm not gonna.
oh,
We've rehashed it on this show about a dozen times. So, and I can't do it justice like Doug does because he's the one who filed the suit. But I'll shoot it to you personally when we get done.
oh yeah, no, I mean that's fascinating. I had absolutely no idea. But anyway, I think what was I saying? Something about the Libertarian Party.
Yep. Go ahead and
Yeah,
rip
so
on it.
I would just encourage any libertarian voter to. I know a lot of libertarians see, well, even I see the Democratic and Republican Party as just what the Republican Party is what is useful as a bag of rocks lately these days, and essentially just a speed bump for Democrats.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about what you dealt with when you ran for office, dealing with the California GOP.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, obviously, I'm frustrated with the Republican Party and the corruption on both sides and the oppressive nature of the Democratic Party, and I understand the desire to stick with your guns and to vote for a libertarian candidate on the federal level, but the way I put it is that for anybody that's watching me on the video here, is that if we got power to the people on one side and the other extreme is the Democratic Party, this is a power to the people is right here, and the other extreme is the Democratic Party. We have to understand the Republican Party is right around here. So we might, yes, choose the lesser of two evils when we have a shot. And meaning choose the Republican Party over the Democratic Party, even if that means you're swallowing your pride a little bit and not voting for your preferred candidate. Because until the Libertarian Party has a viable candidate, and keyword viable candidate on the federal level, then yeah, I mean, please, I would just encourage everybody to vote for the lesser of two evils, which is the Republican Party, right?
Well, 100%. And so you're, excuse me, you're segueing into one of my favorite topics, something I've been working on a lot, is the national political party system, which I touched on earlier. Where in the founding fathers knew that we'd have factions. They argued about this in the ratification conventions, and they argued about this in the Federalist Papers. George Washington warned us against "quote unquote" factions, which are political parties.
Yep.
They called them factions back then. And in his farewell address, he said this is a problem, but due to the idea of free speech, we really can't keep people from freedom of association. I understand this, and obviously, for someone who portrays himself as a constitutionalist, I'm certainly not going to go against the original intent. However, what they didn't think was going to come into play is that money would purchase elections, and that's a problem. You will hear every Republican and Democratic voter say, "Get elections out of politics."
Get money out of politics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, did I say
you
wrong?
You don't think the founding fathers foresaw that?
To some degree, yes, but what's happened? It's been captured, and Citizens United is, solidified it, like, to agree we never thought possible.
Yeah.
In a world where you have representative government, we all have the same voice. We can all contribute money because money is speech, but there's campaign contribution limits. So you and I both have $5,000 per candidate. That's fair.
Yeah. Don't call it campaign contributions. Use language. It's bribery.
Well,
bribe money.
Well, that's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
Because what happens is these mega corporations, these mega donors, through PACs that have been solidified because of Citizens United, they say citizens are corporations are people. Well, no, they're not, and I can prove that to you in the next 30 seconds. So I propose an amendment, and I've talked about this on the show, but I'm going to bring it up again for you because I want to hear your reaction. I have a very simple amendment. The only registered voters can contribute to campaigns, period. Well, corporations aren't registered voters, therefore no more contributions. Done.
Yeah, direct individual donors, because I think what you'll see is that you'll see like employees of this corporation will donate to a political candidate or on behalf of or something like that, and like a company will just donate on behalf of their employees to a political candidate. No, it's got to be a direct from the individual to the candidate.
Yep. You're picking up what I'm putting down. And there's a second part of it that I think is important that everybody will agree with. Again, everyone bitches and moans about foreign interference. Real simple. Campaign contributions can't cross state or county lines depending on the election.
Yeah.
Done.
So I feel like anybody, regardless of your political ideology, left, right, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, would agree with that amendment, right?
With these two principles. There's a few details to work out. We can do that off the air, but yeah.
So why don't we just, instead of forcing their hand or instead of getting them to change the laws, why don't we just put people into office that understand that principle and unite the people, the left and the right, behind that principle, and say, hey, to fix our corrupt system, we got to put people into office that are people funded.
You could literally run on that as an independent and win in some places.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's how important. So I actually I have that up on my Rumble channel. I did a video on this and talked about it just about 2 weeks ago in a live presentation. Which, if I'm smart enough, I'll try to put it in the link. There's one of our regular followers has been managed to on our Constitution classes, Stephanie Rechtenwall, as I don't know if she's here tonight or not, but she is managed to get herself elected to a nice position in the state of Michigan,
Nice.
and she likes this idea so much that she wants to put it forward in the state legislature. She wants the state legislature there to bring that forward for their local. But this is something that's going to have. I'm going to try to give it wings. I'm getting ready to launch my Substack. This will be the first article I write about it. So this is it's something very near and dear to my heart, and I think it's a very simple solution. But I'm glad you like it, because if you didn't, I would have to rethink it, because I do trust your opinion.
No, no, and when I was on the campaign trail, I was 100% people funded. Like, you can go to my website. Can I type in the chat here? Will this work? Let me see if this works.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. And now I'm looking at myself here instead of the Zoom. So for anybody on the chat, I just put my website on there, corbinsabol.com. You can connect with me on social there. You can connect with my Substack as well. But then if you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see how I highlighted how I highlighted myself how I'm 100% people funded, but I highlighted why that matters to you. Why does it matter to you that a candidate is 100% people funded? Well, I think the answer is obvious. Like you said earlier, the audience here is very smart. If you have donations from a corporation or a PAC or an organization, you're beholden to that organization or PAC. And you answer to them. You don't answer to the people. So that is so important, to be 100% people funded. And I think I'm at the point where I would rather vote for somebody on the left who's like leans left, who is 100% people funded, as opposed to somebody on the right who's more on the patriot side, who's bought and sold by some corporation or some organization.
Why do you got to threaten our democracy like that, Corbin?
Our democracy. God.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. God, I made a Instagram reel. And by the way, I started my own podcast as well called Plea to Humanity. It's on YouTube as well. I put it on the chat, my website. You can connect with my Substack, my podcast, and all my social through my website for anybody that's interested in connecting with me further. But one thing that I talked about is how we're not a democracy. And obviously you said this is a smart audience, so this is probably going to be common sense to a lot of people. We're not a
democracy.
We're a republic, constitutional republic.
We're a federal republic. We are a federal republic, and the difference is profound.
Okay. Can you go 30 seconds on that real quick?
Yeah, I will. So Republic of France. France is one nation. That's a republic. They use some of the ideas of, okay, we're not just pure democracy. We've got some other limits. Different interests have different vested interests, whether it be the corporations, the nobility, what have you. We're a federal republic, which means a confederation of states. Every single one of the states is sovereign in and of itself. And we agree to have a federal, we would call a general government, the founding fathers would. That is different. It's never been tried before. We are unique. That keeps the central government from having this totalitarian power they're imposing on us. That ended in 1861 with Lincoln's invasion of the South. We need to get it back. They've been
everything that you just said was how I understood a constitutional republic. So I think we're saying the same thing, just two different labels, unless you're saying a constitutional republic is something else.
The word federal is the important part. It's an incredibly important part. The difference between that and just a republic is it's a federation, which means a bunch of different sovereign entities. They're always going to be united by something like a constitution document. But calling it a federal republic matters, and we need to get back to that conversation to understand that the power is distributed. We are every single state is sovereign. We all stand up and say, God bless America. We're patriots. We bleed red, white, and blue. But perhaps we shouldn't be. Perhaps we should, because you and I are Californians, or at least I will be for another 2 months. That story I'll tell you later.
Oh, God.
No, I'm actually getting kicked out of here. For the right reasons. We should be Californians first and Americans second. That's the way the founding fathers wanted. That's the difference. So although we love our federal union, the fact is we love our state first. And the way the founding fathers were sitting there in Philadelphia, they're saying that you represent Pennsylvania, I represent Virginia. we respect each other. We want to combine forces for mutual defense and benefit. But
Right,
the last thing I want is for you to be telling me what to do in my state and vice versa.
right, right. No, yeah,
That's well, that's the difference. What
that's
we've
how
had,
I, that's what I understood a constitutional republic to be.
okay, it's a different terminology. The
Yeah,
Constitution, look, I got my pocket Constitution right here,
yeah,
and I teach the Constitution. I believe in a lot of the principles before it, but the word federal republic needs to come back into the public awareness. It's a big freaking deal.
interesting. I think the only thing that you said that I didn't really understand was California first, American second.
Mhm.
I think that's maybe the only thing that you said that I didn't quite know.
And
But
that's how they thought back then.
okay, real
And
quick, what did you say earlier? In 2 months, where are you going?
I may as well make the announcement now since you called it out. So
You said it, not me.
well, I fell in love with a new gal, and
Ah,
she's amazing. She's my
okay,
soulmate,
okay,
and she lives currently in New Hampshire,
okay.
and
Oh, Freedom State. Okay.
you not according to her. So I will
Oh,
in 2 months I'll be spending the summer in New Hampshire, and then
okay.
we're going to end up moving to Florida.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's that's really cool. It came out. It wasn't expected. I didn't expect to be leaving. I had a really good relationship with a great patriotic girl who we split up in January. Wasn't looking, and I got hit by the thunderbolt, and I am head over heels. Found my soulmate, and
Wow.
yeah, I'm gone.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations. I'm happy for you. You're there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I got to leave a lot of
Okay.
good people. I got to leave a lot of good people behind, but now I'm following my heart, and I'll end up
Well,
in.
now what you can do is you can move to Florida and you can run for office and you could be a patriot down there and solidify that state and make it more and get us back to that federal republic.
My job. My job's not to run for office. My job's to find like guys like you, and help them win office. That's what I'll be
Okay,
doing.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But remember what I said earlier, I never saw myself as the guy to run for office until I walked through that door. So I don't know. Maybe there's just a door that you're not walking through. You never know until you try.
Oh man, I hate politicians so much. I don't think I
Hey,
could live my.
yo, I'm yeah, so do I, and I'm really really don't like the idea of running again. It was a good experience. Don't get me wrong. I made a lot of good connections, but it was tough.
Yeah, but you got some pretty good name recognition. You ran a good campaign. A lot of people noticed you, and so you've got a future in politics. So I hope you do. I hope you do run again.
Well, I will, if only to be a delegate for the California GOP. And by the way, we didn't talk about the corruption within the California GOP that we were going to talk about at the very beginning.
Well, we got time, so go ahead and segue into it.
Yeah. So we talked about earlier on, we were talking about the whole struggles with the California GOP and the lack of support and what they expect of candidates to do for raising money and just to cycle that money around. And if you don't do that, then you're going to get written off and not get a lot of support. But take a look at this. It's ballot harvesting. So people on the right, on the Republican side, will look at the Democrats and be like, oh, universal mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting, that's bad. What are you doing? You're just cheating, blah, 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 blah. Little did I know that within the California GOP, there's also ballot harvesting going on with internal to the California GOP to keep a certain group of people in power within the California GOP or the club within the California GOP. So what happens is that candidates will vote for the party offices for the next 2 years, every single election. So we just went to the convention in Sacramento, the spring 2023 convention in Sacramento, where we were to vote on the party officers for the next 2 years, the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and the treasurer. So not everybody can physically go and vote. So you can give up your vote to somebody. But what the California GOP does is they go source those proxies. They're called proxy votes, let's just call them ballots. They go use money that is donated to the California GOP to hire consultants to go collect ballots ahead of time prior to the vote to solidify their vote. And it is disgusting. It's corrupt. It's shameful to have learned about that. And it just goes to show you how corrupt the California GOP is. So, by the way, if anybody here is donating to the California GOP, please stop. Or the Republican Party, please stop donating to the Republican Party and on the national level and the California GOP or any state level GOP, donate to an individual candidate. Yeah. So I was very, very surprised to hear about that and the corruption within the California GOP. Very, very disheartening. Extremely disheartening because it makes me reluctant to even associate myself with the Republican Party, especially the California GOP.
No, I get that. And, that's the stuff we kind of hinted at earlier. We want the grassroots organizations, including one
Yeah,
you helped co-found, they, they need to be talking to each other and say, look, we'll pick our candidate. Let's deal with this in the primaries and work
yeah,
with the GOP, but the GOP wants nothing to do with this.
yeah. There's a grassroots group within the California GOP that's finally gaining ground. It's called the RCC, the Republican Conservative Coalition. That's internal to the California GOP. So that's what you're talking about.
Mhm.
That wasn't me. What We the People Coalition, but
Yeah.
that's like internal to the California GOP, more grassroots. And their endorsed candidate, Mike Cargile, I want to say who I voted for him, and all my delegates voted for him. I want to say he got 35% of the votes, 33, which pretty good, right? 33 or so percent of the vote for the RCC to just really get organized and nominate a candidate.
Well, do you think California elections are even remotely legitimate? Do you think those numbers are accurate ever?
I would say even internal to the California GOP, they're not accurate. No, no,
No, no, no, no. We were saying because you and I, we were on the streets and we were talking to people and we knew the polls, even in the recall election of Gavin,
yeah,
California may actually be red.
yeah. I mean,
But
well, the only reason why I think that the only reason why I would think there's legitimacy with it being a blue state is ballot harvesting. They have so much money. They send out so many people to literally go knock on doors and collect ballots.
no,
And
and I'm glad you brought. Well, it starts with voter. The voter rolls are ridiculous. I mean
yep,
that's an issue, and I don't know if you know this, but I've had a number of conversations with Dr. Douglas Frank, and I've gone into. I think his data is accurate. I'm kind of good at data analysis, and I've looked into his, and I can't find a flaw in with what he's done. Um, so yeah, there are serious election integrity issues, but it starts with the voter rolls. And in
yep.
California, we got a motor voter. You show up at DMV, it doesn't matter where you're from, you're automatically registered to vote. And guess which are you D or R? It's pretty much automated for whatever reason. And then of course, then you get all the propaganda sent to you, because you put a D by your name, and you have an uneducated voter base. That's why the
Yep.
Democrats want people to be able to vote at 16 because they
Yep.
rely on the uninformed voter. But with that being said, you talk about the ballot harvesting, and it's interesting because the national storyline is that Republicans lost the midterms. No, they did not. And again, I'm not a Republican, I'm an independent, but I lean conservative like you wouldn't believe. And I lean against the Democrats because I understand what they represent, which is the opposite of what I care about. Um, the Republicans gained seats in the House and fired Nancy Pelosi. So how did that happen? Well, that's because California gained 5 congressional seats and New York State gained 4 congressional seats. That was a swing right
Yep.
there. The bluest of the blue states did that because they had organized ballot harvesting. So this shit matters.
Oh yeah.
This
Yeah. So
shit, this
you're saying those seats flipped because of ballot harvesting?
absolutely 100%.
Okay.
You know,
That's
in
I'm
20
very happy to hear that.
in 2018, we lost all the congressional seats in Orange County, which, as you and I both know, is pretty close to San Diego. In fact, probably more conservative than San Diego at this point.
Yeah.
But they lost like 8 seats, and it was all
Yeah.
ballot harvesting. And so the Republicans in Orange County woke up in 2022 and flipped it back. They've gotten
That's
most of those. They've gotten most of those seats back.
Yeah, it's a battle for resources now until universal mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting becomes illegal. Is who's got the most resources and who's got the most ground power.
Well, and here's the problem: is if you're a grassroots guy who wins your primary, you're not going to get the support from the GOP to do all that to get those resources. That's the stuff that pisses us off.
Because I'm not raising money for them.
Well,
Because I'm not.
that's the Rona McDaniel BS.
Well,
That's why.
also California GOP.
Yeah, but it's the same. Well, where's Rona from? You know, isn't
I,
isn't she, isn't she from California?
oh, I didn't know that. No, I'm not sure.
I don't know. She's like Mitt Romney's niece or something like that. The other part in California is, and this is why Kevin McCarthy can never be trusted, even though he's done a good job as speaker so far and he's made some good headlines and pushed stuff. The whole delegate system, the way California's GOP is manipulated, it has to do with the delegate system. And Kevin McCarthy, um, he basically inherited power of that from God, what's the guy's name? Bogle, who used to be Warren Buffett's number two guy. Um, they control the California GOP. If you don't play ball with them, you don't get the California GOP money. It's a
Yeah.
delegate system, but we can take that away from them with enough
Okay.
grassroots support, and you can do
We
that,
can.
and you can do the same stuff across every state. You guys have all heard about the precinct strategy. It's been on the War Room, and that works in a lot of states, and it has worked in a lot of states.
Yeah.
It doesn't work as well in California because the way our GOP has set it up. But the precinct strategy is a big freaking deal. So you need to get involved with that. I know people.
And I had a few people over to my house. Oh, the thing that I invited you to that you couldn't come to, where you were coming down from Orange County or something like that.
Mhm.
Well, one thing that we talked about is networking and building relationships with the candidates and the delegates as soon as possible. So we communicate this message. So next election cycle at the California GOP, for the next convention, when we vote on the party officers and the chair and the vice chair and the secretary and the treasurer, we can get some grassroots people in there.
And that's exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah.
We got to hit them from every angle, and we're doing that. I mean, it's not like we're not motivated, and there's not a whole bunch of us, but we're up against a pretty big machine, and
Yeah, we're up against a machine on the Democratic side, and we're up against a machine on the GOP side. It's when it comes to like freedom loving average Joe Americans like you and me and everybody listening here, the cards are stacked against us a lot. It is, but don't lose hope. Never lose hope. It's but we have to understand that there's a lot stacked, and there's a lot against us right now. Democratic side, Republican side, it's tough. And all the institutions that's been captured by wokeism and the media and stuff like that, it's tough. But there's a lot of don't stop fighting. Don't stop using your voice. Get active. Get on social media. Get on Twitter. Get on Instagram. Share information.
yeah, I agree.
I,
I mean, we Corbin and I agree. We share a message of hope. There's challenges ahead of us, but
yeah,
the founding fathers took on the greatest empire that the world's ever seen. It was an empire where the sun never sets, and they
yeah,
won, and they won.
with muskets and pitchforks, essentially, right?
Yeah, and sometimes less than that, but whatever
Yeah,
it took.
yeah.
Last thing we want is just to go kinetic, but we don't want to have to get the muskets out. But we're going to defend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the last thing that we want to see happening is like a hot war where we're actually using guns to fight for our liberties and our freedoms. But hopefully that never comes. But the only reason we're going to avoid that is for every single person to get involved. And I would say one of the most disheartening things when I was on the campaign trail, when I did a couple speeches here and there, one of the most disheartening things would be I would ask the audience, whoever was listening to me talking, I would say, raise your hand if you're volunteering with a candidate. And out of a room of 30 or 40 or 50 people, maybe 2 or 3 people would raise their hand. And every time that happened, my heart just sunk to the bottom of the floor. It's like, what is going on? How come nobody's out there doing something?
A few weeks ago, I went up to nearby town Fallbrook to help out my ex-girlfriend's campaign to get a special election for their school board. The person who was elected had to step down, and the person who wasn't elected got appointed, and that's not okay. So we got the voter roll list of all the Republicans in the area, and I went door knocking. I don't want to go door knocking. I don't want to knock on people's door in a fit. I actually I did it for 2 weekends. Single-handedly got almost enough petitions by myself, enough signatures to get this to a special election, which is going to happen. And
Nice.
I met a bunch of awesome people. You need to do this stuff, people. You need to get involved.
But
Go knock on the door
power.
after like the fifth door I knocked on and had a great conversation. They go, people are saying, "God, and God bless you for what you're doing."
Yeah.
We agree with you.
Yeah, when I was door knocking for my campaign, I mean, it was tough. It was the last thing I wanted to do, especially
God,
after.
I freaking hate it.
Yeah, but I had some pretty good conversations, and I had some okay conversations. I had some not so good conversations, but overall, a good experience and so necessary, so necessary to do for everybody in this chat to volunteer with a grassroots candidate for the next election cycle and make the sacrifice. Make the sacrifice. It's
Make the phone calls, write the emails,
yeah.
just
Send
do
the
that.
mailers, something like that.
It's it's
Donate.
our it's our freaking country. If we
Yeah,
take we can take it back if enough of us do it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But if you can't, and then if you can't don't, what is the saying? If you can't donate your time, donate your money. Right? If you're so busy, if you legitimately are a busy individual and you got a family to take care of and the work, whatever like that, and you have a legitimate reason to not volunteer your time to go door knocking or whatever like that, you got to donate money. Okay, you have to choose. You're going to donate your time, your money, or maybe both. But none of that, not donating time and not donating money, is not an acceptable answer. It's just not at this point. I mean, there's so much to lose, right?
Well, yeah, and there's a comment in the chat that I want to respond to saying I'm reloading ammo. Absolutely, because that's what buys us the time to keep the tyrannical government from coming after people like Corbin and me and the other people they can't come after us as long as there's 100 million gun-toting patriots.
Oh yeah,
they can't do it. We need them to understand that we're never going to give up our right to bear arms.
right.
That's a reason we never have to worry about a foreign invasion.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
yeah,
The Second Amendment was there for one reason only, and that was to keep a tyrannical federal government from ever overstepping their lane. They're overstepping it, but they can't round us up because of people like someone in the chat here, who is like most of us, who are relatively well armed, to put it gently.
yeah. No, I mean there is the yeah. I mean you said it perfectly. I mean obviously the importance of the Second Amendment is to keep that tyrannical government at bay, but it empowers the individual to protect our rights. From anybody who would want to infringe on them, whether that's a private citizen that's trying to do us harm, or the government as well. It's there so that goes back to the word power and why I use it so often. The Second Amendment empowers us. If
My
you want to
pie,
transfer,
my
if you
pie.
want to, yeah, the pie. If you want to empower the people, raise that fist and go power to the people. If you want to bring power to the people, arm them, right? That sounds powerful to be armed, doesn't it?
Well, it's exactly right. The nature of the state is to always impose its will upon the people, and
Yeah.
I talked about the welfare queens that are the state. We have so many people in the federal and state government level that have a vested interest in having the state and power grow. Well, it's unsustainable. It's a Ponzi scheme. It always has been. They're supposed to be the servants of us, not the other way around.
Yep.
And this authoritarian mindset we've created a system where the state thinks that they rule over us, and that's not the system we agreed to.
Right.
You can go ahead and change it, but you got to go through the process of a
Right.
constitutional amendment. We can have that conversation.
Yeah.
If you want an EPA, that's fine. Let's have the conversation and let's see if 3/4 of the states will approve that. If not, that's still left to the states according to the 9th and 10th Amendments.
Correct.
If you want an FBI and you think that's necessary, you can have that conversation. Let's have the conversation and let's see if most of us agree.
Do you have a rough percentage? Do you have a rough percentage in your head of what our federal government is doing that's unconstitutional? Like over 90%?
Yeah, it's about that. We went through all of the 3-letter agencies, and there's only like 4 or 5 out of 30 that are remotely constitutional.
Would you say the Space Force and the Air Force is constitutional?
No, the Air Force is not, but the Air Force absolutely is necessary. It should have been something added constitutionally. That should have been an amendment.
So you're saying it's not currently constitutional?
It is not currently, but I believe it's necessary, and I think if it were put up for ratification, it would have passed.
Interesting, because I was listening to a Peter Schiff podcast a long time ago.
Peter
and
Solid.
Yeah, and he bit more or less said that the Air Force is constitutional because our founding fathers, if there were airplanes at the time when they wrote the Constitution, they would have included it in there, Army, Navy, and
no. Okay, so that's a valid point, but you have to look at it from a pure constitutional standpoint. Now we have airplanes. Now we have the need for an Air Force.
The Constitution.
Just amendment. Say,
okay,
look, yeah. We already know the Navy is always constitutional, permanent Navy. The Army is not.
Yeah,
A standing army is not. It's got to be renewed every 2 years.
yeah, that's why they fund it every 2 years.
That's exactly right. So if you're going to create an Air Force and make it a permanent, that's fine. That's a reasonable argument. And and
Just
and
amend the
give
Constitution.
just amendment. Let us have the conversation.
Yeah.
That
But what has been happening for so long is that the federal government has just been granting itself powers.
Well, yeah, pretty much since 1803, or maybe even 1791. 1791 is when Alexander Hamilton created the first bank of the United States. 1803 was Marbury versus Madison, where the Supreme Court summoned out of thin air the ability of judicial review. Who determines whether a law is constitutional? It's not. It's the judiciary. The judicial branch's job is to enforce the laws that have been put in place. It's the state's job to say whether something's constitutional. And they do that through the power of the budget.
Yeah.
They can't do that anymore because of the 16th and 17th Amendment. So
Yeah.
we got a little bit of constitutional work to do to get back to being a federal.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
We got
So
a bit of work. We got a bit of work to do.
There's one thing that I wanted to talk about as I was thinking about before we started filming. So let's shift gears here a little bit. What do you think is going to happen to the dollar, and what should we be doing right now? You're a Wall Street guy.
Yeah, that's kind of my forte. Is this conversation? I keep getting asked that. I would tell everybody I did a pretty good job of answering this on Friday night on a really small YouTube channel called Citizen 1776. About the 45-minute mark, I got into this. So I'll give you a brief version of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
No. These are untested times. I don't have a lot of studies to show you what you do. You know, I can't give you a correlation matrix for the U.S. dollar collapsing because it's never happened.
Yeah.
Um,
my suspicion is that it's just going to continue to devalue, and whether inflation comes at a rapid pace in the form of hyperinflation or just a little bit more gradual than it is now. I mean, eventually our dollar is just going to get less and less value, as it has been since the creation of the Federal Reserve.
So 15 years ago, I started having these conversations with a lot of pretty smart economists. And if the U.S. dollar stops being the global reserve currency, that's about a 20% drop in our purchasing power.
That's it? 20%? Okay.
This was 15 years ago, and this was with nothing else moving. And obviously nothing happens in a vacuum. But that's about the boost we have by being a reserve currency. We get about a 20% boost.
Okay.
And that matters. That's trillions of dollars of U.S. wealth every year. That's a lot of money globally.
Yep.
You're feeding into the concept that the BRICS countries are going to start their own reserve currency, and we should be applauding that because currency competition, just like tax competition, keeps governments honest. If my capital can go to some place that's going to treat it more fairly, that's going to force my home base to be more fair.
Yeah, interesting.
Just by definition. So we want currency competition. A multipolar world is a good thing. I'll just throw this in there because
no, that's interesting. I'd never heard of the idea of a multipolar world being a good thing. Obviously heard of the other side of the argument, it being a bad thing.
No, it's absolutely a good thing. You want that's how we as a citizen, as a business, as a consumer, how do you keep your government honest? Well, if your capital if they're not honest, we can go elsewhere. That's a free market.
Yeah.
That's
so
a free
market. It's not competition.
Yeah, it's a free market solution.
Yeah, interesting.
So
I've always wanted to see internal to our country multiple currencies instead of just being stuck on one fiat system. Because if there's multiple
did you see where Texas on Thursday or Friday, the Texas state legislature passed a bill, and by the way, this is not constitutional. They can't actually do that under current U.S. law, but they're trying to do it anyways. To have a gold-backed digital currency in Texas.
Why can't they do that?
Article 1, Section 10, I want to say, states that they cannot.
Have their own currency. Well, because it's a constitutional duty of the federal government to coin money or something like that, or have a
no, the constitutional to coin money is Article 1, Section 6, but article I think I might have the articles wrong. I'm not Doug Gibbs, so I occasionally get these wrong, and I'm not going to pull it up right now. But it basically says they can't incur debt like that. They can't. It has to do with a debt issue. I should have a better answer to that, and I will next time we talk. But we talked about this on Friday night. I asked Doug the same question.
I know states can't go into debt. Our federal government can go into debt, but states can't go into debt.
Yeah, well, that goes back to 1791 with Alexander Hamilton. How Alexander Hamilton screwed up America. He decided to assume state debt, and that's where we started the slippery slope of the federal government taking over state sovereignty. And this is important. It's an incredibly important issue, by the way. Why shouldn't the states be sovereign? You heard what I said earlier about being a federal republic.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we should have every state should have their own currency. But
I mean, maybe that'd be tough.
Maybe it should be outside the states. Maybe it should be decentralized. And don't get me started on Bitcoin because I'm not going there.
Yeah, yes or no for Bitcoin? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Neither.
Neither.
No, I think the jury's still out. I think
okay.
I think the concept of a decentralized currency is a great idea.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. Like I should be able to go to the store and buy a loaf of bread in government money, Bitcoin, gold or silver, other forms of currency. Like I should be able to transfer money within my bank account. Okay, I've got $1,000 in fiat currency. I've got $1,000 or whatever in Bitcoin. Oh, I got gold and silver as well. I should be able to use all those forms of currency to go buy goods and services.
So the reason any currency has any value is because you and me agree it has this value.
Correct. Yeah.
So all we have to do is create a protocol that is stable in price. So I would say a decentralized, blockchain-based, asset-backed cryptocurrency that all the people of the world agree upon, that has, so it's oil, gold, silver, real estate, what have you, that are, and they price on market value, and that determines the value. If we do that and get the governments out of the freaking way, problem solved.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Well, when I say government and you say banks, and we're talking about the same thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just remember, all wars are banker wars.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? I think I was listening to something.
Yeah, you're right, Sleepwalker. What I just talked about is world peace. That ends it all forever. I mean, seriously, if we can actually solve this question, and we just solved it, Corbin. It's that simple. How do you get world peace? We agree on a currency that the governments don't control, so that the people that control governments can't control us. That's it. It's not that difficult.
Because I guarantee you the average Joe in Ukraine and the average Joe in Russia don't want to be fighting each other.
Well, the average Joe in Ukraine is pretty well educated, understands he's getting paid about 1/4 of what his counterpart is in the rest of Europe, wants to be part of the European Union more than anything else. That's the only reason he supported Zelensky. Zelensky's a puppet of the U.S. State Department who has all kinds of different globalist ideas. Do you want me to go down this rabbit hole? Because I will do a rant on Ukraine.
Oh no, we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. We only got about 15 or so minutes, but yeah.
The average person in Ukraine is not a bad person, but most of them are living in Europe now because they love the fact that we had this war, because now they're able to immigrate to Europe with all these changes of immigration, and they get to make 4 times what they're making in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, I get the point that I was trying to make is that the average citizen in any country during any war doesn't really want to be fighting to the death another citizen of another country. It's always just the few people in power that are pulling the strings, that are forcing us to go to war and literally kill ourselves over for their benefit.
Yeah, people don't fight people. Governments fight governments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we're little pawns in their game.
It always has been, and it's time to stop. I mean, that should be our message right there. What you just said, we should lead with that with every conversation we have. It's time to stop this shit.
Yeah, and that's something like the libertarians believe, and stop the wars and stuff like that. Which, I mean, I agree, obviously, And if I were to choose a political party between the Democratic, Republican, and Libertarian, I would say I would lean towards the Libertarian Party. The only problem is that nobody takes them seriously and they don't have any viable candidates.
Well, so let's defund the national political parties with my amendment, and then we can actually have the conversation locally where shit actually gets done, which you know because you've been involved locally.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the national political party, which by definition defunds the state political party to some degree. We can work on that. We can extend my amendment. We'll have that conversation. But at the end of the day, I mean, we could actually fix all this stuff overnight.
I mean, in theory, yeah, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, but most people that call themselves on the left would agree with us. Let's get the money out of politics.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
let's get foreign influence out of politics. They agree with us. It's only the politicians that disagree.
well, the problem with that is that we would have to convince everybody to make that issue number one. But right now we have abortion, climate change, gun control. Those are everybody's issue number ones. How do we get people, these, I'll just say it, fanatical people that I have a coworker whose number one issue is abortion. Number one. If you're not pro-choice, you're not getting her vote.
Well, then she's not woke enough because her number one issue should be the fact that you want to kill trannies.
Yeah.
Because that's the current messaging.
Yeah, I guess, but
you personally want to kill trannies.
What do you mean?
Oh, of course you do. You don't think you should have what do they call that? Tranny story time.
Oh yeah. And because you don't, then
because you don't want them teaching your kids transsexual stuff. You by definition hate trannies and want to kill them.
The same thing with gun control. If you don't want to ban the AR-15, that means you want to see dead kids in school.
God, I'm shopping for an AR-15 right now. Nice. So I must be a terrible person. Yeah.
You want to see dead? You want to see kids dead? What's wrong with you, Brady?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You hate trannies.
Yeah, exactly. But what I was saying earlier is we need to be able to deliver the message in some way to say, like, hey, abortion, okay, I get it. I'm not going to be able to, I'm pro-life. I might not be able to ever convince you to be pro-life. You might always be pro-choice, but we have to take abortion from issue number one and bring it to issue number two and reprioritize issue number one with getting that money out of politics and that foreign influence.
Well, have you seen the national polls about what issues that most of the Americans care about? Abortion is like number 11 on the list.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 2022, they led on it because that's all they had.
Yeah, with Roe versus Wade. Horrible timing with overturning Roe versus Wade, by the way.
You know what? That's fine, and we don't have enough time for me to actually give what I want to say about that. That was actually one of the best states' rights decisions that we've seen in a long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, just the timing, because it just gave the Democratic Party so much ammunition.
Well, they ran with it, but the day before, they had the New York gun law that they ruled the opposite, because I don't want the federal government ruling on gun laws. The Second Amendment says the federal government cannot restrict your gun rights. It has nothing to do with state gun laws. Last thing we want is a federal government sticking their nose in state gun laws, period. This will piss off a lot of second right absolutists because they think the Second Amendment is absolute. Well, it is. The federal government cannot take away your right to bear arms ever, but your state can.
Your state can?
They absolutely can. It's constitutional as all hell.
So the state of California could make the AR-15 illegal, or all these gun restrictions is all perfectly fine?
100% they can, according to the U.S. Constitution. Can they do it via the California Constitution is a different question. But according to the U.S. Constitution, state gun laws are okay. Federal government, every single federal government law is unconstitutional, period.
Does that apply to other freedom of speech, for example?
Yeah, well, we don't have time to get too deep into this, but this is an idea. The 14th Amendment really brought this into play. It's a deep constitutional conversation.
Oh, you got some tractors in the chat. The states cannot.
Well, they can. Well, by definition, they can. Otherwise, every single state constitution wouldn't have language. If the Second Amendment was an umbrella that controlled all gun laws, the states wouldn't have their own state gun law, and 49 of the 50 do. But that's fine. The founding fathers' version of this topic was that if you have a problem with your state law, you fix it locally. But that they sure as hell didn't want the federal government to be able to take away your guns. And that's the important part, because the whole purpose of the Second Amendment was to make sure that the federal government can never be tyrannical and mess with us.
Yeah,
Now,
obviously I understand that part with making sure the federal
your state is actually able to do that because the Bill of Rights is not incorporated. This is the concept called incorporation. This is a 2-hour show on its own, and we'll do this.
I bet,
And Doug and I have dug deep in this, and I don't want to piss off the chat because I love you guys, but hear me out. The Second Amendment is absolute. Every single federal gun law is unconstitutional. Every single one. Period.
Federal
gun law.
Yeah, but if state, like the California restrictions, you're saying California.
So if you want to fix it, you got two choices: either fix your state or get the hell out.
Interesting.
That's how you deal with.
The 10 round magazine limit, the restrictions they put on the semi-automatic rifles. It's all perfectly fine.
Well, it's not a U.S. constitutional issue; it's a state constitutional issue. So then the federal government's not the one doing it. The state constitution is the one doing it. So you refer to your state constitution and then you fight it.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're like me and Corbin in California, and we got bullshit state gun laws, we do fight it.
Yeah.
And we back the people that are fighting it. And these are the people we talked about them earlier.
Yeah. So we got a few minutes. So do you want to wrap up a little bit and do some closing remarks?
Well,
so we don't end in the middle of a tangent.
No, I gotcha. Well, first of all, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Absolutely. Yeah,
did me a great favor. It's been a good show. I mean, chat. How'd you like my out of nowhere guest? I thought Corbin did a great job.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Last thing you guys wanted to do is hear me 2 hours of trying to figure out things to talk about. So Corbin,
talk about the Federalist Papers for 2 hours, or just read the Federalist Papers verbatim. Okay, we're gonna go read Federalist Paper 49.
Dude, I would have just thrown some videos on there and took a nap. That's what I was gonna do if you hadn't showed up. So thank you, man. You definitely.
I kind of like this whole D Live thing. It looks like it's just you got every 2 hours or every hour or so you got another person, another host or something like that.
Yeah, we'll be handing off to sorry, I'm not in the Zoom right now. I'm looking at the D Live. The calf and whoever she has with her this week will be jumping on. We'll be jumping on momentarily. We'll do a handoff and we'll talk to them for a couple minutes.
I'm gonna plug my website in the chat one more time for anybody that didn't get it. Through my website, you can connect with all my social media, my podcast, and my Substack. Connect with me there. And then, I would say closing remarks is get engaged. If you're not volunteering with a candidate, if you're not donating to a candidate, I'll just say it, you're wrong. The opposition, the Democratic side, they're well funded. They've got their millions and millions of dollars through the corporations and the billionaires that are donating to them. We've got every single one of us. It's our duty. It's our responsibility to step it up, to go knock on doors like Brady said. I mean, what did you say? You said in Fallbrook, you personally collected enough signatures to issue the special election. Is that correct?
I almost enough myself. They needed 70.
Almost enough yourself.
Yeah, I was 10 short of doing it personally.
Right. But that's the power of what one person can do, right?
No, it's true. And that's what we should all be doing that. And it's one thing to be keyboard warriors, which we all are, which is an awesome thing.
It's important to be a keyboard warrior to get that information out, but also we need to be a door knocking warrior. We need to be a ballot harvesting warrior. If you're not harvesting ballots this election cycle, next upcoming election cycle, you're wrong. If you're not knocking on doors, if you're not, again, time or money. If you can't donate your time, then donate your money. If you can't donate money, donate time, or both. Donate both. But you got to do something. Every single person needs to get involved.
I love this comment. Great show. You could tell Alan and Doug to take off next week. You guys come back. So Corbin
might be a recurring host or something. Well, I'd love to be back.
Well, we'll definitely have him on my channel. We got to do a
Yeah.
follow up. We hit on a couple of topics that you and I need to follow up on with my channel. And gee, I'd like to beg to come onto your new channel since now that you're on YouTube, and I hope I won't get
Well,
you
yeah.
banned.
Well, right now it's just a monologue, me talking to the camera. But in the near future, I do want to set up the ability where I can have guests on to do it like that. But right now, my podcast is just me talking.
Well, we'll get there. My new company is all about helping private content creators expand their reach,
Oh, cool.
teaching how to market, monetize everything. We've got all the tools in one spot. That's what I'll be rolling out Revolution Harbor really soon. We're about to
Awesome.
launch. Yeah, and
Yeah, shoot me a link or something like that, or a text or
I'll
whatever.
bring you on board. You'll be one of our guys.
Yeah, cool.
So
Awesome.
so
A couple.
we got about 3 more minutes. You guys all know where to find me, but I'll go ahead and repeat it. So my legacy channels are War Hamster, War_Hamster, or War Hamster at Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, which I've started to put my stuff out on, and they have not banned me yet, which is interesting. I guess my content's not. I guess I got to start being a little bit more offensive. I haven't even gotten a strike on YouTube yet. I'm somewhat offended by that. The channel I'm trying to promote is Brady Fox, BradyFoxx at Rumble, and my Substack is coming soon, and I'll talk a lot about these constitutional amendments and stuff like that. Douglas V. Gibbs and Alan Myers will be back next week, I believe. Although I might have seen the text to you. I might have gotten a text while we were talking tonight that says we're going to have to do this again, but we'll see. Corbin, you good for coming back for another week? If I have to, if I need you, you going to pinch hit for me again?
Yeah, shoot me a text. Let me know.
I think it was a great show. You did a great job. I appreciate you filling in. And
Thank you.
yeah, no, you're a good dude, and you stepped up when I needed you. So I owe you a
Appreciate it.
favor. I owe you one.
Yeah,
And
we can go over some current events, maybe go into the rabbit hole of this whole gender ideology or something like that.
we could go anywhere you want to go.
Really, in any direction. There's so much material out there to talk about.
Well, we'll stick around for a couple minutes because the calf is here. We're gonna do the handoff,
Okay.
and we always do a nice soft handoff, and we'll talk to Kath. Kath, take over.
Whoa, that was quick. How are you?
1 minute early. Yeah, we were done. We came totally unprepared. You got here just in time. How are you, darling?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good.
Happy Resurrection Day.
Yep, absolutely. Happy
Uh,
Resurrection Day to you. Did you spend time with family and friends?
yes, I sure did. I was at my mother's and spent time with the fam today. So, yes, it was nice.
Good for you.
Nice to have you on, Corbin.
Hey, nice to
Hi,
meet you.
nice to meet you. So, what did you do today, Brady?
Well, I thought I was just going to be like the third wheel, like I normally do with Alan and Doug, and then I went to champagne brunch after church at the beach,
Yeah.
and I went to had champagne brunch, had a couple drinks, and all of a sudden Alan and Doug tell me that I've got to do this show myself, and so I'm panicking. I'm going, I'm not prepared for this, and I've had a few glasses of champagne. That's not fair.
Oh.
So I reached out to my buddy Corbin, and he stepped up, and I appreciate that, buddy.
Yep.
Of course.
You guys had a great show. I was listening in the background, so you did a very good job.
Thank you.
There's no way I could have done a 2-hour monologue.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It's not easy, but yeah, but you guys did a great job. I see Mega Mo's in here. She's gonna back me up tonight.
Hey,
Yeah.
what's up, girl? Hi,
Hey.
guys. Good show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It was. So
Thank you, darling.
yeah. So apparently, you're on social, aren't you? True Social?
I am. I don't spend much time there, but I do have a account.
Well, Trump today posted World War III.
Oh goodness.
We're gonna delve into that, and he has an Easter message too. We're gonna listen to. But
With
yeah,
everything that's going on with China and Taiwan and war. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it sounds like there's a lot of stuff getting ready to go down. Laura Loomer said there was going to be something breaking big tomorrow. So we'll see. We hear stuff all the time. So
Oh yeah, yeah. There's always something. Yeah, could be a distraction. Could be. Yeah.
Corbin,
Just a
Corbin,
little bit of drama.
let me give you a little blessing. May you live in interesting times. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a curse.
that's a
Oh yeah. Well, hey, let's just
It-
say that I've been storing a lot of food in Mylar bags, and I bought a freeze dryer, and I got some gold and silver, and I got water stocked up. So
There
I
you
think that's
go.
what it is.
you're ready to go. I've
Hey.
got, like I said last week, I've got about 12 packs of toilet paper, so I'm set.
Well, you're set for the COVID pandemic 3 years ago, and now you got to get ready for the next one.
Yeah, I gotta work on the next one too.
Yeah. They haven't decided what they're gonna have us fighting over next time. Maybe toothpaste.
Exactly. I know.
Toothpaste.
Yeah, they're still
I never
closed.
understand the toilet paper. Why toilet paper?
I don't know. I mean,
anybody
it's a
know?
necessity. It's probably the first thing that I don't know. It was That's crazy.
They
You know,
wanted
they
to
probably had.
cause chaos,
But
right?
there was nobody in the media saying, "Oh, toilet paper we're gonna have a toilet paper shortage" or something like that. I feel like it was this natural, organic thing that, I don't know.
Then the
Yep.
media did feed into it, and then
Yeah,
the more they
yeah.
did that, people started freaking. But yeah, what a
I
random
understood
thing.
I understood the cleaning supplies, the wipes,
Yeah,
disinfectants,
Yep.
the toilet paper.
it's kind of random.
Yeah.
It's going around. Then it was baby food, and then
Yeah.
eggs. My goodness, when you walk into Sam's and they have those huge refrigerated areas, and the eggs are empty, whatever.
Well, they really freaked us out here when they said dog food was a problem.
Oh yeah, and
If
it
I
was
c-
cat food here too for a long time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, if I can't feed my Elvis, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they played all the games.
And one thing that did come out of it is toilet paper prices went up just like everything else and have not come back down yet. So score one for them.
Yeah,
You
it's
think that's what it
ridiculous.
is?
The paper towel.
They find a reason to jack up the prices, and then they keep them inflated, keep them high like that.
Yeah. Like a bottle of rubbing alcohol used to be 98 cents. It's now $3.98. That's ridiculous.
And they don't bring the prices down after they find a reason to jack them up.
Yeah.
So, Kath, were you on early enough to hear that I'm moving to the East Coast?
No.
Yeah, I'm leaving Southern California in a couple of months.
Where are you going?
Well, I'm moving to spend the summer with the love of my life in New Hampshire, and then we're moving to Florida.
Yay! Awesome.
Yep.
Congratulations.
So we'll be on
New
the.
Hampshire's beautiful state.
I'll
Live
enjoy
free or
that.
die.
I love the motto, obviously,
Yeah.
and I want to check out the Free State people, because
They're cool. They're very they're outdoorsy, you know. You got the Mount Washington, which is a huge part. It's like a lot of state parks. New England is really a beautiful area. I'm born and bred, as you can tell, if you can't, but I live
What?
in the armpit of New England in Connecticut, which is like high taxes, halfway between Boston and New York, but
well, this will be a short term for me. I
Yeah.
hope. But we're planning on going to Florida. It looks like the Panhandle, and yeah.
You'll be down there by close to Patrioski. He lives down in the Panhandle.
Well, then make sure you put us in touch.
Okay, we'll do. Have you met him at all?
No, I know the name. That's it.
Yeah. He does Monday through Friday.
Yep, 3
3 to
p.m.
5.
Eastern.
All right. Well, Kath, take care of making the connection.
I will. I'll do that.
You girls, ladies, have a great show. I'll be listening to most of it.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Nice to meet you,
Yes.
Corbin. Welcome to
Nice to
Patriot
meet you guys
Soapbox.
as well.
Welcome.
And
Please
enjoy
come
some dinner.
back.
Yeah, Brady, if you want me on again, I'd be happy to join. Thank you everybody for listening to Brady and I talk. I had a great
Thanks.
time.
Thanks,
I told you,
Corbin.
Brady, you might like taking the wheel. It's sometimes nice to be the one
That's right.
directing the conversation.
Well, I had a pretty good help. I had a pretty good co-pilot
Yeah, you
tonight.
did.
So, yeah.
You picked a good co-pilot.
Corbin's pretty rock solid. We figured that out a long time ago. So it was
There you
easy.
go.
Good night,
Yeah, and
ladies.
I would say Dougie owes you big time.
Oh, yeah. You have no idea what I'm going to extract from them.
Nice.
All
All right, I'm gonna get out of here.
right. Good
Corbin.
night, guys.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night, ladies.
Good night.
So Happy Easter, the calf.